With the many maps Mecha BREAK has to offer, it's time to talk about one of the maps that became available upon official release back in July, and what differentiates from my first review. There's going to be the opposite being said about certain points when they are brought up, and this map is my favorite in terms of the official release maps, so let's get going on today's video. This is one of the Operation Verge maps featuring the Chlorite Extractor game mode. The many features throughout this map include the following. The first four sharing the same map characteristics to Cape Blanc Observatory. First off, it's the vast open space of the map. Then you have the abundance of chlorite crystals, often concentrated around the middle crater area of the map, where the first dismantle point spawns in. Then we have the little amount of structures present throughout the map. There's remains of fallen strikers. There's lava present throughout the map. Then you have ruins, natural cave formations that can serve as a miniature rooftop shelter. The shores located on the north side of the map, which lead out to the ocean, and the skyline that shows the opposite of what Cape Blanc Observatory has, a dark scenery. So, characteristics aside, what tends to happen in 6v6 matches on this map, considering the 2 points that were implied earlier, having the same design philosophy and game mode featured, I dare say 6v6 matches will suffer from the same problems that occur on Cape Blanc Observatory. Usually within the chaos, when everyone is fighting over an extractor, when you have strikers such as Inferno or Hurricane, or just any striker that has equipment for the purpose of distracting FCS systems, allows you and your team to buy some time to dismantle extractors, but results can vary if one of you forgets to take the time to dismantle, or if the enemy finds a way to pull through such distractions. For each extractor that spawns on the map, while the very first extractor shares the same kind of location and location design like what is featured at Cape Blanc Observatory, the other extractors do not share the same similarities. On Stella Observatory Isle, extractors usually are positioned in open areas, with some that can be put at a close distance to a natural wall or within a trench-like environment, which strikes the opposite of the areas you can find extractors on at Cape Blanc Observatory, where extractors can be found on top of mountains, near mountains, or just surrounded by buildings, where most are not even tall, which points you at a vulnerable position to Narukamis and Aquillas, or any typical behaviors. Line of sight shouldn't be that much of a problem, but like I've said, if the extractor spawns on an area where it is surrounded by a lot of props, strikers such as Tricera or Narukami may have to pick a different line of sight, which strikes the opposite at Cape Blanc Observatory, where you can have a great view of just about any extractor as long as you are on top of a mountain. But for both Cape Blanc Observatory and Stella Observatory Isle, there's the behavior of teammates splitting off and not sticking together as a team. But due to the game mode that takes place on the map, there's also moments where pilots utilizing Stellaris or Narukami will deviate from their team in an attempt to dismantle an extractor on their own. Is there anything I enjoy about this map? It's the same I would say about Cape Blanc Observatory. Due to the map's design featuring mostly open spaces, it allows for combat to not be as obstructed by terrain and structures present on the map, which is something that occurs in combat more often on maps such as Graceland's Sky City and Babylon's Sky Fortress. What about any additions that could be implemented? Similar to Vigil Librum, PvE targets being present on the map can bring more life to the map. However, due to the chaotic combat Such targets would need to be set up so they are in areas away from where combat would occur, something Vigil Librum once again does a good job with, because combat on that particular map doesn't have a lot of those enemies, and they are positioned away from where you would fight for the keys. And when you take a look at certain areas where combat does occur, typically the chances of getting a kill in a hallway leading to the interior area wouldn't be as common as getting a kill in the room, similar to the room on the map Eye of Misra. And in comparison to combat on Stella or Cape Blanc Observatory, these two maps will have its moments where combat near an extractor will drag beyond the close radius where such points are located. So with all of that out of the way, it's time to bring up game mode compatibility due to the map's wide open design for both land and air space. It's not difficult to picture what it's like for this map to host other game modes. To start with Deathmatch. This one is already too obvious because it's not rare for teammates to separate themselves and treat the extractor game mode like it's Deathmatch. Sorry. Then we have the Key Escort game mode. This one opens up to many possibilities in terms of location design. If the idea is to have only 3 points for the keys to be obtained, certain spots on the map are open to such objectives, and if not surrounded enough by obstructions, so such areas can be a good place to put such objectives. Then comes the Domination game mode. Similar to the Key Escort game mode, it also opens up to how the devs could set up the location of the 3 data nodes. But I think this is how it would look on the map. The first one should be obvious enough to have the middle point in the crater, while the other 2 can be at the harbor and the third one on the runway. And speaking of the runway, finally comes to the Payload Escort game mode. While at first glance, many would argue this map is too wide open, if not as flat as Cape Blanc Observatory. Once again, I need to bring up there are certain features on Stella Observatory Isle that can serve as a rooftop shelter, unlike Cape Blanc Observatory where there isn't any at all. As far as how the pathway would look for both teams, I would say it should be set up just like the extractor game mode, where both teams will start off on the respective sides of the crater, and the payloads will travel upwards and dive down into the crater, exiting the tunnels, and from there the payloads will make their way throughout the map, being in close proximity to the ruined structures in the areas where there's lava, heading to the shores where you can enjoy the great view of the water, and finally the finish line will be at the runway where the payload will take off or be destroyed, similar to Longman launch sites designed and respective cutscenes. And my reason for using the word combinations is to present this idea. Throughout the video, I brought up the point about the map having a lot of space, which is something the devs obviously can take advantage of. If the idea is to bring to life the payload game mode for Stella Observatory Isle, instead of having one route for both teams, how about having more than one route and different sections of the map serving as capture points? That way it can make the map and game mode itself more interesting, and I don't think there's a lot of games that have such game modes where there's more than one route. It's often just one path from start to finish. And to give this map a rating, I would give Stella Observatory Isle a rating of 4.5 stars out of 5, because the map's designed for the most part takes inspiration from Cape Blanc Observatory, but adds in more features, if not more of a challenge, with its additions. So what do you think? Do you agree with anything I've said in this video? Let me know what you think in the comments section below. My name is Dragon Actual, and thanks for watching. See you next time.